What happens when two of the most outspoken women in media clash in a way nobody saw coming? Today, we're diving into the explosive confrontation that had everyone talking, where careful planning met unpredictable chaos, and what started as a routine interview turned into television gold that nobody could look away from. Make sure to subscribe and drop a comment below, because this story gets wilder with every single minute. The studio lights were blazing hot that morning as Megyn Kelly adjusted her notes one final time. Her show had been gaining serious momentum lately, and landing Meghan Markle as a guest was exactly the kind of booking that could push ratings through the roof. The Duchess of Sussex had been making headlines for months with her various projects and public statements, and Kelly knew her audience was hungry for the kind of direct questioning that had made her reputation. "She'll be here in 5 minutes," the producer announced, checking his clipboard nervously. Everyone knew this interview had the potential to make waves, but nobody anticipated just how big those waves would become. Megyn arrived looking polished and confident, her signature smile in place as she greeted the crew. She had done countless interviews by this point, from Oprah to major network specials, and she moved through the pre-show routine with practiced ease. Her publicist hovered nearby, occasionally whispering last-minute reminders about talking points and areas to avoid. "Megyn, wonderful to finally have you here," Kelly said as they settled into their chairs. The cameras weren't rolling yet, but both women were already sizing each other up, veteran media personalities recognizing the game they were about to play. "Thank you for having me, Megyn. I've been looking forward to this conversation," Megyn replied, though there was something in her tone that suggested she was prepared for battle rather than a friendly chat. The countdown began, and Kelly launched into her opening with trademark confidence. "I'm joined today by Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, actress, podcaster, and someone who has never shied away from speaking her truth. Megyn, you've been very vocal lately about media representation and the treatment of women in public life. But I have to ask, don't you think there's a difference between speaking your truth and expecting everyone else to accept it without question?" The question landed like a challenge, and Megyn's smile flickered for just a moment before returning. "Well, Megyn, I think there's a difference between speaking truth and speaking opinion. When I talk about my experiences, I'm sharing what actually happened to me, not offering commentary on what I think might have happened to someone else. But surely you understand that when you make public statements, especially about institutions like the royal family, people are going to scrutinize those claims and ask for specifics," Kelly pressed, leaning forward slightly. "For instance, when you talked about concerns regarding your son's skin color, you were quite vague about who made those comments and in what context." Megyn's posture stiffened almost imperceptibly. "I was protecting people. Megyn, sometimes discretion is more important than satisfying public curiosity. The fact that those conversations happened is what matters, not necessarily broadcasting every detail for entertainment value." Entertainment value. Kelly's eyebrows shot up. "I think accuracy matters when you're making serious allegations. And speaking of accuracy, there have been several instances where your version of events has been contradicted by other sources. The story about your wedding, for example, or the claims about your mental health support. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Megyn's media training kicked in, but there was steel in her voice. "Now, Megyn, I'm not sure what you're implying, but I've been very careful to only discuss my personal experiences. If other people want to contradict what I live through, that says more about them than it does about me. I'm not implying anything. I'm asking directly," Kelly shot back, her journalist instincts fully engaged now. "When you make public statements that affect other people's reputations, don't you have a responsibility to be completely accurate rather than just sharing your perspective?" "My perspective is my reality," Megyn replied, her voice rising slightly. "And I find it interesting that women, particularly women of color, are always asked to provide more proof, more documentation, more verification when they speak about their experiences. Would you be asking these same questions if I were a white man talking about workplace challenges? Kelly didn't miss a beat. Actually, yes. I would, because I ask tough questions regardless of who's sitting in that chair. That's what journalism is supposed to be. And frankly, playing the race card when someone asks for basic accountability is exactly the kind of deflection that makes people question your credibility in the first place. The studio went dead silent. Even the cameramen exchanged glances, sensing that something significant had just shifted. Megyn's publicist looked like she was about to have a panic attack, while Kelly sat back in her chair with the satisfied expression of someone who had just landed exactly the punch she was aiming for. Megyn took a deep breath, clearly struggling to maintain her composure. "Did you just say I was playing the race card, Megyn?" "I said what I said," Kelly replied calmly. "You brought race into this conversation, not me. I was asking about factual accuracy, and you immediately pivoted to suggesting I was treating you differently because of your race. That's a deflection tactic, and it's beneath someone of your intelligence." "No, what's beneath my intelligence is sitting here and being lectured about accuracy by someone who built their career on Fox News." Megyn fired back, her media training finally cracking under pressure. "Let's talk about accuracy, Megyn. Let's talk about the stories you've promoted, the narratives you've pushed, the way you've treated people who look like me over the years." The gloves were officially off now, and Kelly's eyes lit up with the thrill of real conflict. "Oh, so now we're going to make this about my career. That's rich coming from someone who married into the most privileged family on earth, and then spent years complaining about how hard it was." "Privileged?" Megyn's voice cracked with disbelief. "You think having people question your children's skin color is privileged? You think having the tabloids destroy your reputation daily is privileged? You think being cut off from your family and losing your security is privileged? I think having a platform to complain about it to Oprah Winfrey in a multi-million-dollar production is pretty privileged." "Yes," Kelly snapped back. "Most people don't get prime-time specials to air their family grievances." The producer was frantically gesturing from behind the cameras, but neither woman was paying attention anymore. This had moved far beyond a standard celebrity interview into something much more personal and explosive. Megyn stood up abruptly, her hands shaking slightly. "You know what, Megyn? I came here thinking we could have an intelligent conversation about important issues. But clearly, you're more interested in gotcha moments and cheap shots than actual journalism." "Sit down," Kelly said firmly, her voice carrying the authority of someone used to controlling difficult interviews. "We're not finished here. Actually, we are finished." Megyn shot back, but she remained standing, her hands gripping the back of her chair. "I don't have to sit here and be ambushed by someone who clearly had no intention of conducting a fair interview." Kelly leaned back in her chair, a cold smile spreading across her face. "Ambushed. This is what we call journalism, Megyn. Though I suppose when you're used to softball questions from friendly media, actual scrutiny might feel like an attack." "Scrutiny?" Megyn laughed bitterly. "This isn't scrutiny. This is a hit job. You invited me here under false pretenses, pretending this would be a conversation about my work and my advocacy, when really you just wanted to tear me down for ratings." "Your work?" Kelly's voice dripped with skepticism. "Let's talk about your work, then. Your podcast that got canceled, your Netflix deals that haven't produced much of anything substantial, your constant victim narrative. What exactly have you accomplished besides complaining very publicly and very lucratively about your problems?" The color drained from Megyn's face, but her voice grew stronger. "You want to know what I've accomplished? I've used my platform to highlight issues that matter. I've spoken up for women who don't have voices. I've tried to create change in institutions that desperately need it. By attacking them publicly instead of working within them," Kelly interrupted. by airing private family conversations on international television, by making serious allegations and then hiding behind privacy when people ask for details. That's not advocacy. That's revenge. Revenge. Megyn's voice rose to a near shout. Revenge for what, Megyn? For being treated like garbage by people who were supposed to protect me. For watching my mental health deteriorate, while everyone around me worried more about protocol than my well-being. Kelly stood up now, too, matching Megyn's energy. Oh, please spare me the mental health card. You knew exactly what you were signing up for when you married into that family. You knew the scrutiny. You knew the pressure. You knew the expectations. But you thought you could change centuries of tradition because you're special. I thought I could make things better, Megyn said, her voice breaking slightly. I thought I could bring a fresh perspective, maybe modernize things a bit. I never expected to be completely destroyed in the process. Destroyed? Kelly laughed harshly. You're sitting here as one of the most famous women in the world with million-dollar deals and unlimited media access. If that's destruction, most people would sign up for it. Fame isn't the same as respect, Megyn. Money isn't the same as happiness. And having a platform doesn't mean anything if people refuse to listen to what you're actually saying. Maybe people would listen if you stopped contradicting yourself every few months. Kelly fired back. First you wanted privacy, then you did tell. All interviews. First you loved the royal family, then they were racist. First you were grateful for opportunities, then you were trapped and silenced. Which version is the real Megyn? They're all real, Megyn said desperately. People are complex, Megyn. Situations evolve. My feelings about things changed as I learned more and experienced more. That's called growth. That's called convenient narrative shifting, Kelly countered. And it's exactly why people have stopped taking you seriously. You can't have it both ways. You can't claim to be a victim while simultaneously positioning yourself as this powerful advocate for change. Megyn sank back into her chair, looking suddenly exhausted. You really don't get it, do you? You think because I have money now, because I have fame, that means I wasn't genuinely hurt by what happened. You think success somehow invalidates suffering. I think timing matters, Kelly said, sitting back down as well. I think credibility matters. And I think when you make explosive claims about powerful institutions, you better be prepared to back them up with more than just your feelings. My feelings? Megyn's anger flared again. You think racism is just a feeling? You think having your newborn child's security threatened is just a feeling? You think being cut off from your family and watching lies be printed about you daily is just a feeling? I think when you make claims like that, people deserve specifics, Kelly said firmly. Who exactly made racist comments? What exactly was said? When exactly did these things happen? Because without those details, it just sounds like someone trying to win a public relations battle. I gave specifics where I could while still protecting people who don't deserve to be destroyed, Megyn protested. But apparently that's not enough for people like you. You want blood. You want names. You want complete destruction of everyone involved. I want truth, Kelly said simply. Real, verifiable. Truth. Not carefully crafted narratives designed to make you look like a victim and everyone else look like villains. The truth is that I was 19 years old when I met Harry, Megyn said, her voice growing quiet but intense. The truth is that I had no idea what I was walking into. The truth is that I tried my best to fit in, to follow the rules, to make it work. And the truth is that it nearly killed me. Kelly's expression softened slightly, but her voice remained firm. And the truth is also that you had resources most people don't have. You had advisors. You had support staff. You had people whose job it was to help you navigate that world. You weren't some naive girl thrown to the wolves. Resources. Megyn shook her head in disbelief. Those people worked for the institution first. Not for me. When push came to shove, when I needed real support, they protected the monarchy, not the person. That's how these systems work, Megyn. They eat people alive, and then act surprised when those people fight back. So, your solution was to burn it all down publicly, Kelly asked. To use your pain as entertainment for millions of people. To turn your personal struggles into content. My solution was to tell the truth and hope it might prevent other people from going through what I went through. Megyn replied, if that makes you uncomfortable, if that threatens systems you're invested in protecting, then maybe those systems need to be threatened. Kelly leaned forward, her eyes sharp. Or maybe you're just someone who can't handle criticism, can't handle not being the center of attention, and found a very lucrative way to stay relevant by playing victim. The words hung in the air like a slap. Megyn's face went through several emotions before settling on something that looked like resignation mixed with fury. You know what, Megyn? You're right about one thing. I can't handle being lied about constantly. I can't handle watching my character be assassinated while people profit from those lies. And I especially can't handle sitting across from someone who built their career doing exactly that and having them lecture me about accountability. At least I never pretended to be something I wasn't. Kelly shot back. I never claimed to be a victim while simultaneously courting every major media outlet in the world. I never demanded privacy while living completely in public. No, you just spent years on Fox News pushing narratives that hurt real people and then jumped ship when it became convenient. Megyn replied, her voice cold as ice. Tell me, Megyn, when you were questioning Barack Obama's birth certificate, when you were defending racist comments, when you were attacking women who spoke up about harassment, were you thinking about truth then? Or were you just doing what your bosses told you to do for ratings? The studio went completely silent again. Kelly's face flushed red, and for the first time in the interview, she seemed genuinely rattled. That's completely different. And you know it, is it? Megyn asked, standing up again. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you spent years being exactly the kind of media personality you're now criticizing me for being. The only difference is that your victims didn't have the platform to fight back. Kelly's jaw tightened, and when she spoke, her voice was dangerously low. Don't you dare try to flip this around on me. Everything I did in my career was legitimate journalism, asking hard questions that needed to be asked. I never hid behind victim status when people didn't like my reporting. Legitimate journalism. Megyn's laugh was sharp and humorless. Is that what you call it when you spend segments questioning whether a sitting president was actually born in America? Is that what you call it when you defend people who make racist comments by saying they were just telling jokes? Because I call that something else entirely. I reported on stories that were newsworthy at the time, Kelly said through gritted teeth. I asked questions that my audience wanted answered. That's what journalists do. Unlike celebrity podcasters who think their personal grievances constitute important social commentary. At least my personal grievances are actually personal. Megyn shot back. I'm talking about things that happened to me, to my family. You made a living talking about other people's lives, other people's pain, other people's struggles, all while sitting safely behind a desk getting paid millions to tear them down. The producer was now frantically signaling to both women, but they were completely locked in their battle, oblivious to everything else in the room. Kelly stood up again, her composure finally cracking completely. You want to know the difference between us, Megyn? I earned my position through years of hard work, legal training, and building credibility through actual reporting. You married your way into relevance, and then tried to lecture the world about how unfair everything is when people didn't worship you the way you expected. Married my way into relevance. Megyn's voice rose to match Kelly's intensity. I had a successful acting career before I ever met Harry. I was already doing humanitarian work, already speaking out about issues that mattered. But of course, someone like you would reduce everything I've ever accomplished to just being someone's wife. Your acting career was one cable show that most people never watched. Kelly snapped. Your humanitarian work was a few photo ops that got you good publicity. Let's not pretend you were changing the world before you got that ring on your finger. And let's not pretend that your journalism career was anything more than reading teleprompters and stirring up controversy for ratings. Megyn fired back. At least I'm honest about using my platform. You spent years pretending to be objective while pushing whatever agenda your network wanted. Kelly's face was now completely red. I have interviewed presidents, covered major international stories, broken real news that actually mattered. What have you done besides complain about your in-laws on television? I've tried to use whatever influence I have to highlight real problems, Megyn said, her voice shaking with rage. I've talked about mental health, about racism, about the treatment of women in impossible situations. But apparently that's less valuable than whatever you call the garbage you use to broadcast every night. Mental health advocacy. Kelly's voice dripped with sarcasm. You mean using your alleged depression as a weapon against people who can't defend themselves publicly? You mean turning therapy sessions into sound bites for sympathetic interviews? That was the final straw. Megyn's face went completely white, then red, and her voice became dangerously quiet. You just crossed a line, Megyn. Making fun of someone's mental health struggles, dismissing genuine pain as manipulation. That's not journalism, that's cruelty. Truth isn't always comfortable, Kelly replied coldly. And sometimes what people call mental health struggles are really just consequences of their own poor decisions catching up with them. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the crew seemed to have stopped breathing. Megyn stared at Kelly for a long moment, and when she finally spoke, her voice was steady, but filled with ice. You know what? Thank you, Megyn. Thank you for showing everyone exactly who you really are. Thank you for proving that some people are so invested in tearing others down that they'll attack someone's mental health struggles on national television. Thank you for demonstrating why women like me have to fight so hard to be heard, because people like you control the microphones. Kelly realized she had gone too far, but her pride wouldn't let her back down. I'm not attacking anyone's mental health. I'm questioning the timing and the way those struggles were weaponized against people who couldn't respond. The timing. Megyn's voice rose again. The timing of having a mental health crisis. The timing of feeling suicidal. You think there's appropriate timing for falling apart when your entire world is collapsing around you? I think there's appropriate timing for airing it publicly, Kelly said, but her voice lacked its earlier conviction. I think there's a difference between getting help and turning your pain into entertainment. Entertainment? Megyn stood up so quickly her chair nearly fell over. You think my pain is entertainment? You think talking about wanting to hurt myself is entertainment? You think trying to save other people from going through what I went through is entertainment? The producer finally stepped forward, trying to intervene, but both women ignored him completely. They were both standing now, facing each other across the small space between their chairs like fighters in a ring. I think everything you do is calculated for maximum impact, Kelly said, her voice getting louder again. I think you know exactly what you're doing when you drop these bombs in interviews, and I think you're very good at playing the victim when people question your motives. And I think you're exactly the kind of person who drove me to that dark place in the first place. Megyn shot back. People who take someone's pain and twist it into something ugly, who can't accept that maybe, just maybe, someone was actually hurt by the system you're so desperate to protect. I'm not protecting any system, Kelly yelled. I'm protecting the truth from people who want to rewrite it to make themselves look better. Your version of truth? Megyn yelled right back. The version where the institution is always right, where the person speaking up is always lying, where anyone who challenges the status quo must have ulterior motives. My version where people have to back up serious allegations with actual evidence instead of just expecting everyone to take their word for it, Kelly screamed. Evidence like what? Megyn screamed back. Should I have recorded private conversations? Should I have worn a wire to family dinners? Should I have documented every slight, every cruel comment, every moment when I felt like I was disappearing? Would that be enough evidence for you, Megyn? Or would you just find another reason to question my credibility? The two women were now almost nose-to-nose, their voices echoing through the studio. Security guards were hovering nearby, unsure whether to intervene in what had become the most explosive television interview in recent memory. Kelly's voice dropped to a harsh whisper. I would find a reason to question your credibility, because you've given me plenty of reasons to question it. Your story changes. Your facts don't add up, and your timing is always suspiciously convenient. Megyn stepped back, shaking her head slowly. You know what, Megyn? I'm done. I'm done trying to convince people like you that my pain was real, that my experiences mattered, that maybe the system failed me instead of the other way around. Keep your show. Keep your audience. Keep your version of the truth, but don't ever question whether someone's mental health struggles are real just because you don't like their politics. She turned toward the exit, but Kelly wasn't finished. Running away again, Megyn. Just like you ran away from your family, ran away from your duties, ran away from everything that got difficult. Megyn spun around one final time, her eyes blazing. I didn't run away from anything, Megyn. I ran toward my own life. My own truth, my own future. Something you clearly wouldn't understand, since you're still stuck fighting battles from your old network. Trying to prove you're still relevant by tearing down women who actually have something important to say. And with that, she walked off the set, leaving Megyn Kelly standing alone under the hot studio lights, facing cameras that had captured every single explosive moment of what would become one of the most talked-about interviews in television history. The silence stretched on as Kelly stood there, realizing that she had just witnessed and participated in something that would define both of their careers in ways neither of them had anticipated when the cameras first started rolling that morning. What did you think of this explosive confrontation? Drop a comment below, and let me know which moment shocked you the most. And don't forget to subscribe for more unbelievable stories that you won't see anywhere.